The room went dead silent when she slammed her hand against the desk. "Are you mocking me?" she barked, her eyes narrowing at me in front of 30 other students. My heart dropped. What? Mocking her? No, no, no. This wasn't happening. Not here. Not like this. I froze. The sound of chairs squeaking and whispers rising around me. The air suddenly felt heavy, like it was pressing against my chest. Why would she think that? I was just trying to read aloud, slowly, carefully, like I always did. But my words had stumbled, dragged out, broken in places. That wasn't an imitation. That was me. Karen. Mrs. Dalton. But everyone whispered Karen behind her back. Stood taller. Her face red with a fury she seemed to enjoy. "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "You think it's funny to mock a teacher's voice?" Her tone was sharp enough to cut glass. I shook my head so fast I thought it might spin off. And no, I didn't. The words tripped, slurred, my speech impediment wrapping chains around my tongue. That only made the laughter start in the back row. Snickers. Muffled giggles. One loud, "Oh," that stabbed right through my chest. God, I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Karen's heels clicked as she stepped closer. Click, click, click. Each step echoed like a countdown. "You've got nerve," she said, crossing her arms. "Do you think mocking someone makes you clever?" My throat tightened. My cheeks burned. Couldn't breathe. And then, like a crack in glass, I broke. I have a speech impediment. I blurted, my voice cracking so loud it silenced the room. "I wasn't mocking you. I can't help it." Gasped. A shifting wave of shock rolled through the classroom. A couple of kids actually stopped mid-laugh, their faces paling as if they'd suddenly realized they were laughing at something cruel. Not funny. But Karen. She didn't flinch. Instead, her lips curled. "Oh, please," she said, shaking her head. "Don't make excuses. If you have issues, maybe you shouldn't be disrupting class." The cruelty hit harder than any slap. I could feel tears threatening, hot behind my eyes. My chest heaved. Why was she doing this? Why wouldn't she just listen? My voice cracked again, broken but raw. "Do you know what it's like," I whispered, "to be laughed at every single time you open your mouth? Do you know what it's like to practice speaking alone in your room just so you don't sound broken?" The silence that followed wasn't just heavy. It was suffocating. Karen blinked, clearly not expecting me to fight back. My body was shaking, but I wasn't backing down. "I wasn't mocking you," I said louder now, words jagged but fierce. "I was just trying to get the words out. That's all. And you made it worse." A chair scraped, then another. A girl in the second row stood up. "He's telling the truth," she said firmly. "He talks like that all the time." Another kid added, "Yeah, I sit next to him. He struggles, but he's not mocking anybody." The tide shifted. Whispers turned into agreement. The whole class was looking at her now. For the first time, Karen faltered. Her eyes darted. Her posture stiffened. And then, the twist. The assistant principal, who had apparently been walking past the open classroom door, stepped inside. "What's going on here?" His voice boomed, calm but authoritative. Karen's face drained of color. "And nothing. Just handling a disruption," she stammered. But the assistant principal's gaze was already locked on me. He'd heard enough. Disruption. I heard a student explaining something very serious, and I heard you dismiss it. His jaw tightened. "Step into the hall with me. Now." The look on her face, like someone had yanked the rug out from under her heels. As she walked stiffly past him, the room buzzed with low murmurs. My classmates looked at me differently now. Not with ridicule, but with a mix of guilt and respect. I wiped my face quickly, my hands still trembling. Minutes later, word spread like wildfire. Karen wasn't coming back to class. She'd been sent to the office. And by the end of the week, rumors exploded. Parents had complained. Students had written statements and the school board was investigating her behavior. But here's where the real twist landed like a hammer. Someone found out she'd been warned before. Yes, this wasn't her first time. She'd humiliated other students, shut them down, made them cry. She thought she could get away with it forever. Not this time. By Friday afternoon, she was gone, removed, dismissed. The official announcement called it a resignation for personal reasons. But everyone knew. Everyone whispered. And for the first time in years, I walked into class without that knot of fear tightening in my stomach. Felt like victory, but not the kind with fireworks. No, it was bittersweet. Because damn it, still hurt. The damage she'd done. The shame she tried to pin on me. It lingered like a bruise. Still, when I stood in front of the mirror that night, practicing words the way I always did, I smiled for the first time. Not because my speech had suddenly smoothed, but because I realized my voice mattered. Broken or not, halting or not, carried truth that couldn't be silenced. And Karen, she learned what it felt like to be mocked by reality itself, to be dismissed, to be the one who finally had to choke on her own words. Isn't it wild how karma works? So if you ever feel like your voice isn't strong enough, remember this. Sometimes the cracks in your words are exactly what break open the truth. And Karen, she'll never forget the day her cruelty met its match. Not in shouting, not in anger, but in the raw, unstoppable truth of a kid who refused to be shamed. Because here's the kicker, the assistant principal later told me, the moment you spoke up, half the teachers in this school were already rooting for you. They knew her reputation. They'd been waiting for someone brave enough to expose it. That someone was me. So yeah, call it a mockery if she wants. But the only voice that got mocked in the end was hers. And I'll never forget the sound of those footsteps. Her heels clicking away down the hall. Softer, weaker, until they disappeared forever. Because for once, it wasn't me choking on words. It was Karen. Thank you for listening to this story, and if it struck a nerve or made you feel something real, make sure to drop your thoughts below and hit subscribe to my YouTube channel for more. When I first saw those unmarked cardboard boxes stacked on my driveway, my stomach dropped so fast I nearly dropped my coffee. Who the hell just dumps mystery packages in front of someone's garage at 6 a.m.? And why oh why was HO President Karen standing there, all smug, like she just pulled off a master plan? "Morning, Dave," she chirped, not even looking at me. "Don't mind these, just a quick delivery. You know, for the neighborhood. Quick delivery. On my property." My pulse was already thudding in my ears, but something about the way she stood there, arms crossed, chin tilted up, made me pause. She was way too confident. I narrowed my eyes. "Since when does the HOA store stuff on my driveway?" "Oh, don't be dramatic," she said, waving a manicured hand. "It's just easier for the van to unload here. The other side of the street has too many cars. You'll live." Her voice had that syrupy tone that makes you want to peel your own skin off. My gut screamed something wasn't right. The boxes were sealed with thick black tape. No labels, no shipping marks, nothing. And they weren't light either. I tested one with my foot and felt the weight. Before I could argue more, Karen snapped a picture of the boxes with her phone on my driveway, then strutted off toward her SUV. I caught the faintest smirk as she slid into the driver's seat. Something was up. By noon, the boxes were gone. No note, no thank you. Nothing but faint tire marks where a different van must have backed in. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. 2 days later, the exact same thing happened, except this time, I was ready. I set up my old trail camera from my hunting days, pointed it right at the driveway. The next morning, click, 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 I caught everything. The same unmarked van rolled up. 2 guys in hoodies jumped out, dropped the boxes, and peeled off in under 30 seconds. 15 minutes later, a different vehicle picked them up. I showed the footage to my neighbor across the street, Mike. Big guy, quiet, kept to himself. He watched without blinking, then looked me dead in the eye. "You need to call someone," he said slowly. "What?" the HOI scoffed. "They'll just back her up. She's the president." He hesitated, then leaned in. "Not the HOA, I work for the federal government. Those aren't just boxes." I blinked. "Wait, you're telling me?" "Contraband," he cut in. "Smuggled goods. And if she's using your property, she's either stupid or she's trying to set you up." That last line made my chest tighten. Set me up? Oh, hell no. The next week was a blur of paranoia. I kept my car in the garage, checked my camera every night, and sure enough 3 more drops. Always when I was asleep or out. Always gone by midday. I didn't confront Karen again. Mike told me to play it cool. He said his team was already digging. But then Karen made her mistake. She left a note. It was taped to my door on HOA letterhead, except the logo was pixelated, like it had been scanned and printed from a bad copy. The text was short. "By agreeing to host temporary deliveries, you are supporting the HOA's seasonal fundraising project. Thank you for your cooperation." And there it was, Wasami's signature, forged in sloppy blue ink at the bottom. My blood boiled. A forged document? On official-looking paper? She had no idea she'd just handed me the perfect weapon. I took the note straight to Mike. He didn't even read it twice before pulling out his phone. "This just turned into a federal case," he muttered. The next drop was different. Instead of the van, a black SUV rolled up, and I swear, I've never seen people move that fast outside of a movie. They swooped in, grabbed the boxes, but before they could leave, unmarked police cars blocked both ends of the street. Lights, sirens, shouting. I watched from my window, heart pounding, as Karen came jogging out in her bathrobe, screaming, "What's going on? This is a private neighborhood." Mike was already outside, flashing his badge. "Karen Walters?" he called. She froze. "What, wise? You're under investigation for interstate smuggling, mail fraud, and forgery. Please step aside." The look on her face, God. It was like watching a balloon deflate in slow motion. They cuffed her right there on the sidewalk. I almost felt bad. Almost. But here's the kicker: the fundraising project she'd been bragging about in HOA meetings? Total fiction. The goods were high-end electronics stolen from cargo shipments, moved through drop zones to throw off tracking. And my driveway? Her perfect decoy. The forged note made the case ironclad. She couldn't argue her way out of her own fake paperwork. Of course, she tried. Oh, she tried. In court, she claimed the boxes were donations, and the signature was a simple mix-up. The judge wasn't having it. Between the camera footage, the federal sting, and her own forged letter, the verdict was swift. Guilty. When the sentencing came, I was in the front row. She avoided my eyes the whole time, but I could feel the heat of her glare. Probation? Nope. Venus? Oh, plenty. And a nice stretch of federal time to think about her life choices. But the real cherry on top. The HOA had to hold an emergency election for a new president, and every single neighbor voted for literally anyone who wasn't Karen. Karen didn't go quietly. 2 months into her sentence, I got a thick envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from Karen herself, dripping with fake politeness. She claimed she'd been wrongfully convicted and was pursuing legal remedies, which was her polite way of saying she was suing me for defamation. I laughed out loud. A lawsuit? From prison? It read like something she'd scribbled on a napkin in the cafeteria. She accused me of collaborating with federal agents to entrap an innocent HOA leader and demanded $250,000 in damages. Oh, and she wanted her good name restored in the community. I showed it to Mike, and he actually chuckled. "She's not going to get anywhere," he said, flipping the letter over. "She filed it herself without a lawyer. And even if she had one, the evidence is so stacked against her it's practically a skyscraper." Still, the pettiness was almost impressive. She was behind bars for smuggling, mail fraud, and forging my signature, Yet somehow she had the nerve to paint herself as the victim. The court dismissed her suit within 2 weeks. The judge's statement was so blunt it almost felt like a roast. The plaintiff's claims are not only frivolous, but they border on delusional. I might have framed that line if I were the type to decorate my living room with legal victories. News of her failed lawsuit spread faster than a summer wildfire. Neighbors who'd once been afraid of crossing her started telling me their own horror stories: petty fines for leaving Christmas lights up, threats over fence colors, even a noise complaint against a deaf veteran's wind chimes. It was like a dam breaking. Everyone had a Karen story, and now they weren't scared to share. By the time the new HOA president Martha, a sweet retired teacher, took over, the whole neighborhood felt different. People waved more. We held a block barbecue without anyone demanding a permit. And the best part? My driveway was finally mine again. One evening, I spotted Mike across the street, leaning on his porch rail. I raised my coffee in salute. He just grinned. "Guess she picked the wrong driveway, huh? Guess she picked the wrong neighbor," I said back. In the quiet that followed, I thought about how close I'd come to being framed, to having my life turned upside down because someone wanted to use me as a shield. If Mike hadn't stepped in, well, let's just say I might have been the one fighting a lawsuit instead of winning one. Karen's story ended in a cold cell and a pile of unpaid legal bills. Mine ended with a clear driveway, a clean name, and the satisfaction of watching karma do its thing in broad daylight. So, if you ever think HOA drama can't turn into a federal case, think again. And if you enjoyed hearing how this one played out, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel for more unbelievable but true neighborhood stories. She shoved a child, her boss's son, in front of an entire warehouse staff. Then she screamed harassment when she was fired on the spot. And when security came, Karen refused to leave, claiming she was the victim of fraudulent termination. You could hear a pin drop, right before someone gasped. "Oh my God," whispered Denise at reception, her eyes wide as she watched Karen's bright red nails jab towards 16-year-old Maddie's chest. The boy stumbled back, nearly tripping over a pallet jack, his face flushed with shock. He hadn't even spoken. He'd just politely asked if she could move her cart so he could restock paper towels for the break room. "Don't tell me what to do," Karen shrieked, voice slicing through the warehouse like a rusty blade. "I've worked here longer than you've been alive, brat." I stood frozen behind the shrink-wrap station, half-wrapped package in my hand. My chest squeezed. Did she really just? And right in front of the cameras? Maddie didn't respond. Poor kid just stood there, swallowing hard, like he wasn't sure if he should cry, run, or punch a wall. That's when the doors burst open. Mr. Langston, Maddie's father, CEO, and the most even-tempered man I've ever worked for, walked in holding his coffee like it was keeping him from exploding. "Karen, my office. Now." The silence after that was visceral. You could practically hear the blood drain from Karen's face. Instead of obeying, she crossed her arms and sneered. "No, I haven't done anything wrong. That little punk tried to boss me around. He needs to learn respect." "Karen," Mr. Langston's voice was deadly calm, but his hands were shaking. "You just laid hands on my son, a minor, in a place of business. That's assault." She laughed, a short manic sound. "Oh please, you're just saying that because he's your precious golden boy. You people are all the same, play favorites, and then cry lawsuit the second a woman stands her ground." Maddie whispered, "I didn't even touch her." That's when I stepped forward, heart racing. "Sir, it's on camera. The footage will show everything." Karen turned to me so fast I thought her neck might snap. "Oh, shut up, Jamie. You've always been against me. Jealous because I've got experience. Maybe you're the one trying to sabotage me." I blinked. "By standing near the shrink wrap?" Mr. Langston exhaled sharply. "Karen, you're fired. Effective immediately. Gather your things." And then, oh no, the real meltdown began. "You can't fire me," she bellowed. "This is illegal. I'm going to sue you for wrongful termination, harassment, and emotional distress. You just don't like that I speak my mind. I'll have your job, your house, hell. I'll sue your kid for slander." "Karen," Mr. Langston said tightly, "please leave before I have to call security." She smirked. Call them. I'm not leaving until you admit this is fraud. It was like watching a live episode of a courtroom drama if the lead attorney was screaming and waving a half-empty LaCroix. When 2 security officers arrived, Karen announced she had documentation proving her termination was based on fabricated complaints. She pulled out a manila folder, flapping it like a weapon. These are printed emails. See? These prove my supervisor was out to get me. Look at this one, she says I'm hard to manage. That's age discrimination. Karen, said Officer Ramirez gently, you need to leave the premises. Right now. We can escort you out or... Oh, you will escort me out right into a courtroom, she spat. Because this is all forged. I know what this is. Retaliation. Fraud. You're trying to silence me because I called out safety violations. Because I'm the only one brave enough to speak up. You shoved a kid, I muttered under my breath. And that was the final matchstick. Karen lunged toward Maddie again, screeching, You little snake! Security had to step in and pull her back. One officer placed her in a light arm hold, not forceful but firm. Her face turned blotchy red. You're assaulting me. You're all going to jail. This whole place is going down. They finally got her out the door, still shrieking. We all stood there in a stunned circle. You could hear someone breathing heavily, maybe me, maybe Maddie. Denise exhaled. That woman's gonna end up on YouTube. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 2 days later, we received word. Karen had filed a formal lawsuit against the company. She was claiming fraudulent termination and workplace retaliation, submitting a stack of allegedly forged emails as evidence, the very same ones she'd waved around like gospel truth. Problem was, someone recognized the email formatting. They're not real, I said, pulling up Outlook. Look, the timestamp font is wrong. And no one signs emails with best regards, middle management. That's not even a name. Mr. Langston called in IT. Within an hour, they confirmed every document Karen submitted was fake, built using a public email generator, and copied logos from our internal documents. Oh my God, Maddie murmured, reading the report. She forged everything. My stomach turned. She thought if she screamed loud enough, no one would check the details. And yet, even with the mountain of false evidence crashing down, Karen didn't back off. She doubled down, dragging us through a brutal 2-week legal circus, claiming she was the real victim. Until the final twist. A former coworker named Tara came forward, someone who'd worked with Karen 5 years ago in another state. She brought screenshots, audio recordings, even HR complaints from a different company, all showing a pattern of forged documents, fake lawsuits, and dramatic self-victimization. Karen had pulled the same stunt before, and this time it caught up with her. At the deposition, Karen was forced to admit the emails were fabricated. The judge dropped the fraud hammer so hard you could feel it through the courtroom floor. Case dismissed. Fines issued. And Karen? Facing criminal charges for forgery and filing a fraudulent lawsuit. Outside the courthouse, Maddie looked up at his dad. She really thought no one would fight back. Mr. Langston gave a half-smile. Bullies always think that until the tables turn. 3 weeks later, the final nail in the coffin came quietly, not with shouting, but with a courtroom clerk delivering a single sheet of paper to Karen's front porch. An official notice. The district attorney had approved criminal charges, not just for forgery but for filing a fraudulent lawsuit with malicious intent. The state was pursuing penalties for abusing the judicial system, wasting resources, and attempting to defame a minor. A minor. Karen's face when she read it? According to a neighbor, glassy-eyed, hollow, and pale like someone had pulled the ground out from beneath her. She tried to save face, of course. Went on Facebook Live ranting about corruption and conspiracies, and how she'd been set up. But no one listened anymore. The comments turned against her. People remembered Maddie, remembered the video footage, remembered how calm the boy had been while a grown woman tried to turn his father's company into a circus tent. Justice wasn't fast, but it was thorough.
Karen pled no contest.
Her record was stained permanently, her lawsuit tossed, her reputation in ruins. And her old job? refilled by Tara, the same woman who helped expose the truth. One afternoon, I saw Maddie walking through the warehouse again. Still quiet, still thoughtful. But taller now, steadier. "You good?" I asked, handing him a box cutter. He smiled. "Yeah, I'm good." We stood in silence for a moment, the buzz of forklifts echoing through the building. Then he looked at me, almost shy. "You think people ever stop being like that? I mean the Karens of the world." I sighed. "Maybe not all of them, but one by one they're learning. You can't fake documents, hurt people, and scream lawsuit just to get your way. Not forever." He nodded. "I guess truth has a way of catching up." "Yes, it does. And sometimes it arrives with a court seal, a paper trail, and a big dose of poetic justice." Thanks for if you want more jaw-dropping real-world drama and satisfying courtroom takedowns, subscribe to our YouTube channel where we turn lawsuit nightmares into storytime justice. They called the cops on my paramedic friend just because he was black and wearing a hoodie. They said he looked like a threat while helping me with a medical device in my garage. 2 hours later, federal agents were knocking on their doors. Not ours. It all started on a windy Wednesday, the kind of day when the leaves scrape across the sidewalk like whispers of something about to go wrong. I had just gotten home from the hospital after a rough 2-day stay, chronic arrhythmia, the kind that makes your heart skip like a scratched record. My buddy Drew, a licensed paramedic and a damn good one, offered to swing by to help set up the new home monitor. He wasn't even on the clock, just helping a friend. But God forbid a black man in cargo pants and a windbreaker walk through our HOA neighborhood. "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" barked the voice from behind us. I froze, wires still dangling from my hands. There they were, the Welch sisters Karen and Cheryl, staring at us from the sidewalk with their matching lemon-lime windbreakers, like twin sour patches of entitlement. "He doesn't belong here," Karen shrieked. "This is a private community." Drew calmly lifted his ID badge. "Ma'am, I'm a licensed EMT, just here to help a friend. Medical visit." "Don't you ma'am me," she snapped, backing up like he'd pulled a weapon. "I'm calling the police. This is suspicious behavior. You're trespassing." "Are you serious right now?" I said, my voice cracking. "He's with me. I live here. You know, I just got out of the hospital." But she didn't care. Cheryl was already on the phone, spewing some fantasy about a large male intruder and possible medical scam. I swear I felt my heart monitor beep faster. Drew placed a hand on my shoulder gently. "Breathe, man. Le chinkong. I got nothing to hide." The cops showed up 6 minutes later, sirens slicing through the neighborhood peace. And despite Drew standing there calm as ever, holding his medical bag, guess who they questioned first? Guess who they patted down? Right in front of my garage? I almost screamed. Drew didn't resist. He just sighed and muttered, "This ain't the first time." But then the twist came, because Drew had pressed record on his body cam the minute the Welch sisters approached. That camera caught everything: the racial profiling, the false accusation, even Karen whispering to Cheryl, "We'll scare him off for good." I uploaded the footage online that night. It went viral. 32,000 views in 12 hours. People were furious. Even my quiet neighbors began murmuring support. By morning, news vans were parked 2 streets over. But that wasn't even the best part. Turns out Drew's not just any EMT. He's part of a federally funded pilot program that places paramedics in underserved communities for post-discharge support. And when he filed his report detailing how he was detained, racially profiled, and publicly humiliated while on duty, it triggered a chain reaction. The Department of Health and Human Services called me. Then the Office for Civil Rights. And within 72 hours, the HOA board received formal notice. There would be a federal investigation into discriminatory practices under Title VI. The look on Karen's face that afternoon, when 3 federal agents in suits and sunglasses walked up her driveway while she was trimming her lilac hedge. Unforgettable. "Oh my God," she gasped, clippers trembling. "Is this about that man?" "No, ma'am," said the lead agent with a flat tone. "It's about your behavior." Cheryl came hobbling out in her slippers, eyes wide. We didn't mean any harm. We were just being vigilant. But no one was listening. Now here's where it gets juicy. The investigation uncovered more than just that incident. Turns out, the Welch sisters had filed 11 complaints in the past year, all against visitors of color. A Filipino dog walker, a Latina teenager selling school fundraiser cookies, a Haitian electrician doing repairs 2 blocks away. The pattern? Crystal clear. And the HOA, they knew about it. The board even had emails advising the sisters to be more discreet when filing complaints. My jaw dropped when I saw the internal emails. One board member even joked, "Those Welch ladies are like Border Patrol with pearls." Can you believe it? The fallout was swift. The HOA president resigned. 2 board members stepped down. And the Welch sisters? Suspended from any future HOA voting rights pending federal outcome. Their little neighborhood reign of terror? Over. But it didn't stop there. Because Drew's lawyer, he hired one. He's now pursuing a civil suit against the HOA and the sisters for defamation and emotional distress. I didn't want to, Drew told me, eyes heavy. But if they can call the cops on me for helping someone, what happens next time? I gotta make noise. I couldn't stop shaking when he said that. Because he was right. And deep down I think even Karen knew it. I saw her weeks later, sneaking out to her mailbox in sunglasses like a washed-up celebrity. She wouldn't look at me, not even a wave. Just a tight clutch on her robe and a shuffle back inside. Funny, right? For someone who loved to speak up, she sure got quiet. But here's what really stuck with me. I found out from a neighbor that Karen's daughter, the one in college, wants to be a nurse. And she was furious when she heard what her mom had done. She said she doesn't even want to come home anymore. The neighbor whispered. Said she's ashamed. Karma. Man, it moves quietly but it hits hard. And now there's a new rule being proposed in our HOA charter: mandatory anti-bias training for all board members and committee heads. Public vote pending. Because it's not just about Drew or me. It's about every visitor, every neighbor, every person who doesn't fit the Welch sisters' mold finally being seen. Being safe. You know what? Maybe something good can grow after a storm. Even here. Weeks turned into months. The lawsuit didn't go away, it grew. Drew's attorney added claims. Violation of civil rights under color of law, defamation, and obstruction of medical care. The HOA scrambled to settle, but Drew refused. No, he told them. You don't just get to erase this with a check. Then came the neighborhood meeting. Packed. Standing room only. People who'd never shown up to HOA functions were suddenly front row. Arms crossed. Eyes locked on the board. Karen was their too-tight blazer, jaw clenched, flanked by her sister. Cheryl tried to smile. Karen didn't even bother. When the moderator asked if anyone wanted to speak, I stood. I was the one being helped, I said. And I watched 2 women lie, humiliate a professional, and almost get someone arrested for being black and helpful. Gasps. A few quiet claps. Karen opened her mouth, but the moderator cut in. Let's allow him to finish. I continued. You didn't just call the police, you called in a culture of fear. That lawsuit is not just for Drew. It's for everyone who's been told they don't belong. Karen finally snapped. You're blowing this out of proportion. We were just looking out for our neighborhood. No, ma'am, I said, echoing the federal agent's voice that still rang sweet in my ears. You were looking out for your comfort, at the cost of someone else's safety. Silence. The vote passed 92% in favor of the new anti-discrimination amendments. The board was overhauled. The Welch sisters were barred from HOA meetings for 18 months, and by court order, required to attend racial bias and community accountability training or face escalation in Drew's lawsuit. But the best part? Drew was offered a regional spokesperson role with the paramedic initiative. He's using his story to push for change on a national level now. Karen? Her daughter moved in with an aunt in Oregon. And her house? For sale. As for me, I am healing. Not just my heart, but my faith in what happens when people finally stand up. Because justice? Sometimes it takes a lawsuit. Sometimes it takes a camera. But always it starts with someone refusing to stay quiet. If you believe in stories like this, and want to see more real-life clapbacks, karmic twists, and justice served, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel where HOA Karens meet their match, one lawsuit at a time.